Television Commission on March 5th, 1978. And we're going to make, first of all, a statement about the meeting. This meeting is being videotaped in its entirety, and then it will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Comcast cable system. Today's meeting is being cablecast live, and then it will be repeated on Saturday, March 7th at noon on Channel 14. A VHS copy is also available for checkout from any of the library branches, and there's usually a time lag between the meeting and when those are available. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form, which is located on the back table, and please give it to the Secretary of the Commission. And then also the one last thing is that if you stand in between the two microphones when you're speaking, they will pick up your speech better, and we need to have you state your name for the record when you come up before you begin speaking. Okay, with that, I think we better call the roll, so we'll establish quorum here.
We have an alternate for Cox, Kevin Bassett.
Here.
Gora.
Here.
Natoli. Dickinson. Yee.
Here.
Waters.
Here.
Kurth.
Here.
Shelby. Collins.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, and welcome, Anthony. Mr. Gora coming up from Galt for the meeting. Good to see you again.
Right.
Okay. The first item we have then is item number 1, grantee status reports. And we had actually 2 people sign up. If there are more than that that are here, let me know. Jennifer
Martin.
Is it Martin? Yeah, I couldn't quite read. Is it Jennifer Martin? Okay, great.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good to see you.
I'm Jennifer Martin. I'm a member of the SECC Executive Committee and a board representative from the Natomas Unified School District. I'm here to tell you that SECC has been very active and has much to tell you, but in trying to keep the report short, I understand I'm confined to 5 minutes. We just want to mention 3 brief items and then share a quick report on an exciting grant partnership that we have between SECC, Natomas District, and the Sacramento Regional Foundation grant called Operation Graduation. The first announcement is that SECC has moved into temporary office space while waiting for permanent space at the County Office of Ed. We are also promoting our annual Student Educational Video Awards. They're called SEVAs. I'm sure you have some information in your packet. And we are encouraging students from the surrounding area to enter their programs in this. The winners will be accepting their awards at the annual SECC Award Night in April, and we hope to see many of you there. You'll be receiving invitations in April. And lastly, we want to announce a very exciting project in partnership with Comcast Cable. Comcast will be bringing a fiber link to the Sacramento County Office of Education. SECC, SCOE, and other community members will be using the fiber to originate programs from the County Office of Education and air them on cable. So we're very excited about this project and very appreciative of the strong support of Comcast, especially the involvement of Dave McVicker. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Operation Graduation, which is involving a grant that we received last year from the Sacramento Regional Foundation for $240,000 with the intent to target the kids who are at risk of not graduating and inviting them into programs that would keep them interested in school. And what we did at Natomas High School and Natomas Middle School was involve the kids in a peer tutoring project after school. For 2 hours, they tutor each other. And they were trained in learning modalities involving both visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, so we knew we would match one student's learning style with the other one's teaching style. And what we tried to do was increase their grade point average, have them stay in school, decrease their truancies, and so on. We are in the first year of it being at the high school. We started with the 8th graders last year, then as they transitioned into the high school this year, we continue the program. So we have that for 1 more year. But what we're doing now is incorporating a lot of those strategies in our curriculum, targeting kids into classes called Learning to Learn, and really trying to reduce the kids who drop out. So that was Operation Graduation, and as part of that grant, I host a television show on SECC channels. It's called Student Homework Helpline. And I'd like to show you a little clip of the program. This was produced by the students last summer, and it's just a PSA that tells you something about it. So let's look at that right now.
Okay, class dismissed. Please check your grades on the way out.
Thank you, Mama. We have that A.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, you guys always get A's, you know something I don't.
Student homework helpline. Yeah. Thanks for calling Student Homework Helpline. How may I help you?
Hi, I need help with my math homework. Student homework helpline helped me get an A.
So as you can tell, we're on tonight. I'll be racing back to school to pick up some of the students, and we're on every Thursday night at 5 o'clock. We answer questions live on the air for any grade level, K through 12. But again, this was part of our partnership with the Sacramento Regional Foundation grant. So lastly, you have our March guide in front of you, and you might take a moment to look at it, and I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions? No, but
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
In your outreach to the students, trying to teach them audio and visual type talents, is it in your office, or do you go into the high schools or wherever the students are?
We actually have another partner involved in this, and they are trained. It's called ECI, Educational Change Management Incorporated, ECMI, excuse me. And they are trained in learning modalities. They actually devised a test for our students. So at the very beginning of school, they give the students in Operation Graduation that modality test, and then they match the students up for tutoring, so that if you're a kinesthetic learner, you're matched with a kinesthetic teacher, and so on. Then the kids flip roles at the end of the semester. The tutor becomes a tutee, and so on.
So you don't really have a facility out there?
We actually just use our classrooms after school. It's not a separate tutoring facility. We just gather the students, and we have certain classrooms designated for tutoring.
I was hopeful that it might be something similar to what they have out there at Mariloma.
Oh.
If you're familiar with the facilities out there.
I'm not.
It's hands-on type work, so thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
yeah, and I just wanted to say that I'm really thrilled that you're trying a program like that. It sounds to me like I'd be very interested in how it progresses with some of the youngsters, if it really helps them stay in school, and it sounds like a unique approach to it.
It really is. We're inviting them in the summertime to have special summer arts programs where they do oils and murals, and some of their paintings are actually in my office, and they're around the school, and it's incredible work that they do. But that keeps them connected to school and in school.
Yeah, it is one of the toughest issues to deal with, I think, for schools. So, trying to find programs that work, really. Thank you very much. Okay, Ron Cooper.
Hello, everyone. Ron Cooper, Executive Director with Access Sacramento. And I thought I'd take this occasion, though a little stormy outside, to update the Commission on the activities of what we termed our SAC Teen Media Project. So following in the vein of the Ed Consortium's great work with young people, we've been busy as well. At the direction of our Board of Directors for this fiscal year, the SAC Teen Media Project was initiated, focusing on our educational partners, but also seeking out nonprofit organizations that are really often working with limited resources and want to encourage youth and understanding of technology. And so in the current fiscal year, since last July 1, I wanted to just go through some of the accomplishments we've had and then finish up with a 90-second clip of the latest Sacramento Youth Symphony concert. It was just wonderful. And I've prepared this based on the various age levels that we're working with currently. At the elementary age, Andy Fletcher, the Executive Director of the Sacramento START program and now a member of our Board of Directors, we're working together with the first middle school program for Sacramento START at Will C. Wood. They're already in production on their own radio program. We've just now completed a program in our studio where the students wrote and performed a TV production from Clayton B. Wire Elementary. We have regular tours of our facilities for teachers and classes. We found that this is important because the TV stations are reticent to allow school-age children to come in, and but it's a very important part, I think, of their understanding of the world ahead. And for the high school age, we're now enjoying our 5th year of working together with the County Office of Education Regional Occupation Program and Broadcast Careers. We have monthly youth and parent orientation sessions to encourage teenage membership and participation. We have our sacteen.org youth-authored internet website in cooperation with the Community Services Planning Council and the New Century Alliance. We're trying to expand that now to high school journalism programs. The Metropolitan Arts Commission and New Century Alliance hosted a broadcast journalism television production class last summer, as well as the City of Sacramento Summer Youth Program, which was the 3rd consecutive year. The Game of the Week productions have continued. We're now 22 games and counting, the full football season, and now girls and boys basketball, and hoping to continue on with the help of underwriters into the spring sports and looking forward to next year. We've co-hosted the Tower of Youth Day at the Sacramento Cinema Festival, recording 6 hours of that event, and also the Linnea Festival for High School Theater Arts out at Sac State, recording 7 original high school plays as they were performed during that wonderful festival. Moving on to higher education, our Cosumnes River Partnership, our investment of $90,000 in upgrading the studio facility for shared use by the community is moving along. One of the first major projects is English as Second Language programming, creating wraparounds for a 26-part series called Crossroads Cafe, working with Sacramento City Unified ESL teachers. Cooperative broadcast training continues both for ROP, Welfare to Work, SCOE participants, and also CRC advanced students. And just wrapping up so that I stay within the allotted time, we sit on the various advisory committees, continue our scholarship and internship stipend programs, and work with the arts programs. And let me now ask the back room to roll tape on a clip from the February 22nd concert produced by staff and volunteers of Access Sacramento with the Sacramento Youth Symphony.
This was a marvelous production. I was there that day. It was great. Whoops. Are they ready?
Behind us.
Oh,
Very
okay.
good.
Yeah.
Shared copies of the Youth Symphony performance are now being duplicated and sent out throughout Northern California. The Youth Symphony is really an all-star symphony from all over Northern California, so other access channels in those communities share it with their residents, take pride in their students, and it invites further youth participation in that wonderful program.
Yeah. This was a spectacular program, by the way, and it was absolutely sold-out crowd. You know, I'm sure they had people that wished they could have gotten in. It was a marvelous, marvelous program, and you're right. They're absolutely first-rate musicians coming from many different parts of this region. Okay, any questions? Yes, Tony?
Roger, you're probably aware that the high school basketball playoffs are in process now, and I think it moves to Arco Arena on Friday evening. Have you planned on covering that?
Yes, we have permission to go into ARCO, which is not easy to do.
Right.
The game this week is going to be 2 games, Division I, Division II, at ARC, which is the site of the girls' basketball, and then next week moving over to ARCO for the boys' finals. It's a series of 4 weeks in a row of various regional playoff games. So we're trying to cover both the ARC site with girls' basketball finals and boys' basketball out at ARCO.
There is a school representing the southern part of Sacramento County that's going to be there Friday night.
Warriors.
Are they really?
They are. They're rated the best in the area on our...
As Mr. Kurth is going to be quick to note, as I am Will Grant High School.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron, very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2 then. The franchisee, licensee, general status presentations, and we have one person, Ruth Blank. Greetings.
Good afternoon. I'm Ruth Blank, and I'm only going to take a couple of minutes of your time today. I can't actually speak that well anyway, so what I wanted to let you know was actually go back a little bit in time. On December 31st, International Channel and Comcast contract ran out, and normally under those circumstances, 2 companies, even if they haven't renegotiated the contract by the expiration date, we'll keep running the channel on the cable system pending contract renegotiations. In this case, International Channel's part of their tack was to demand that Comcast systems across the country, not just in Sacramento, discontinue carriage of the channel. This was a blow for us because we do have a lot of viewers of the channel, and we discovered just how many we had once we had to pull the channel off. And it really looked quite bleak. That it was going to be very difficult to come to terms with International Channel. We were looking for other sources of foreign language programming, and from hearing from many customers in Sacramento speaking many different languages, and then I was trying to make contacts with various programmers around the country of different language programs. I realized it was just a monumental task to try to duplicate what International Channel had been doing. I am very pleased to let you know that as of today, Sacramento, not Comcast as a whole, but Comcast in Sacramento only, has a contract with International Channel. We'll put the channel back on tomorrow.
Great.
But I want to let you know that this is truly in response to the probably thousands of customers in Sacramento that we got letters and emails and phone calls from. And it was very moving to hear the stories of people talking about their parents who really don't speak English very well, whose only connection to their homeland was through International Channel at maybe 4 or 5 hours a week of programming in their language. And one of the things that makes me particularly proud of this is, honestly, it was not the financially wise thing to do to put the channel back on. There are probably other uses of the channel that would have been more financially advantageous, but this time it was really the right thing to do, and I'm very proud to say that Comcast did that. So I'm sure you've heard from some constituents, and what we're going to do now is we're going to contact personally everybody who's contacted us, and we're certainly going to get the word out in many of the newspapers that print in foreign languages in the community as well, so that you'll know that their channel is back. Just wanted to let you know that, and I'm available for questions.
That's great news, I think. Mr. Yee.
Ruth, I don't have any questions, but I'm certainly pleased that International Channel is back on Comcast. I personally have received a lot of calls, and you're probably aware of that, primarily because a lot of my constituents are speaking a language other than English. And I don't know how you're going to announce it, but certainly they'll be more than happy to see it when they start surfing that.
I hope the word gets out, because, as I said, we probably have well over 1,000 emails and letters, and we'll respond to all of them individually to let them know that the channel is back on, and I hope that it spreads out from there. But we'll also announce it in the papers, as I said.
Have you tried to reach some of your outreach into some of the minority papers or media?
Yes, that's what we're planning on doing. And this is such late-breaking news that I couldn't even tell you what time tomorrow it's going to be turned back on. We haven't even worked out the details yet, but it will be sometime tomorrow.
Thank you.
Great. I have a lot of happy constituents with that news, too. Thank you. Robbie?
Question. While you're up here, rather than wait till the end and call you back up, had a few questions about the standard basic, or the flex pack. 2867 was the bill last month, and the bill is now gone up to 3151 for a difference of 284. Can you tell me what that 284 and says previous balance 2867, and then $2.84 has been added to it. Can you tell me what that 284 is?
Well, 299. Without looking at the account, I couldn't say exactly, but 299.
But in that ballpark,
the flex pack price.
And is that something the person has to take as a flex pack?
No.
What do you get with the flex pack when you go from the old rate of 2867 to the new rate?
You get, the flex pack is Turner Classic Movies, TV Land, Discovery, TBS, and TNT.
So if a person didn't want any of those, they just call and go back to their other.
We've had many customers do that.
Another complaint was that they didn't order the TV guide. Now, is that something? They just all of a sudden their bill went up for this particular bill I have doesn't have TV guide on it. They said there was an increase in their bill. Are they mixing that up with this flex pack then, or?
If it shows a line item of TV Guide on the bill and they didn't order TV Guide, by all means they should get a hold of us because it's an error.
Okay. And then the last one is box rental. I guess everybody has a box. Is that the way that works? So that's
right.
Automatic.
And some of the box rental prices went down in February, or one went down, one went up.
All right, I appreciate it because I just have to tell them when they come in and ask me.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Ruth? Thank you very much for being here. Okay, we are now at the 3 p.m., the notice public hearing, River City Cablevision to Comcast merger, and
I'll introduce the item, and I would recommend that you open the public hearing. This is an item that you've seen twice before, once in its primary fashion, and that is to approve the transfer of ownership from River City Cablevision, a 5% owner in your franchisee, to Comcast. You approved this once, you then extended the time period. That transaction was not consummated, and the same parties with the same authority, the same request, have come back to you again and asked for your authorization again to allow that transfer. The staff report is essentially the same as the one you've seen now twice before. The simple components are staff believes there is nothing material that would advise you to not approve this transfer. And in fact, your franchise ordinance says that such a transfer cannot be unreasonably withheld. For that, I recommend that you open the public hearing, take any public comments, close the hearing, and take your vote.
Okay, we have no one signed up. This is certainly an open public hearing now, and while we have no one signed up, are there questions by board members on the staff report? Roger?
I had something I wanted to raise that was generated by the staff report, and it goes to the local control issue. While we might agree that approving the resolution makes sense in terms of a settlement that's been reached between the parties, and one can have a different view perhaps on how much control or participation the 5% owners actually had. The issue that it raised for me was the question of some form of local citizen participation in matters related to Sacramento Cable as an operator. Obviously, this commission serves in some regard, one hopes, as a forum for those kinds of issues to be raised. But when we had an operator that had a greater or at least some degree of local participation in the ownership, even if mostly legal only, there was an avenue for local voices to be heard. As this ownership becomes totally composed of non-Sacramento interests, even that is lost in the process. So, does it make sense? Is it feasible? Is it duplicative in some sense to create some? Is it even desirable to create some kind of citizen advisory group to Sacramento Cable, with Sacramento Cable? And Ruth may want to comment on this, because I'm thinking not so much to this commission as I am thinking to the operator itself, having some kind of a community advisory group.
Question was to staff, or you mentioned?
Well, I think it's for you, Rich. It's for Ruth. It's something offered into the ether, and those who detect it and feel response is important.
I think we have to separate comments for a moment, and Harriet may want to step in on relative to the issue of the transfer. I raised this for your consideration in the staff report to put on the record that you're aware of the decision and the points that Mr. Dickinson raises. It's staff's feeling, though, that the participation by this group of 70+5% owners has not had a material effect, especially in our Scripps-Howard years, in any operation of the system. In fact, there are a few examples I could cite where their participation, I think, served to counter the general policies and direction that you've had. So from the standpoint of the transfer, and is that change enough that we have some threshold level to deny it? It's staff recommendation that we don't. So that's that piece, and that's in writing before you for your consideration. Separately, the idea of more community input, or community input in addition to that which you provide to Ruth, and let Ruth comment on that. Historically, the company has done only a little bit of that. But recently, if you've been watching Comcast, and Ruth just mentioned, on email, on faxes, this issue of the international channel, they've shown where they've done some more focus groups. And Ruth and I meet frequently enough that there appears to be a process now where gathering community data and putting it into the process, especially relative to programming, that's where most of the issues come from, that you don't have authority over, is going on. And so it may be that it's there, and I'd say let Ruth pick that up. In the last 6 months or a year, the pieces of that I've seen and the pieces of that Ruth has discussed with me, that we've talked about, is new. That wasn't there before. It was much more corporate decisions on programming issues.
But that's still more ad hoc in nature. Selected and driven by the operator.
That's correct.
Right. I mean, as opposed to having an ongoing, regularized forum.
Right. The difficulty I have is that I think that most of the conversation you're going to get from your constituencies, or your constituency, will be about programming, and that's not much that you have. I mean, you can set the process up if you need to, but we have to stay here and say to you that as programming issues come to you, it's great to hear about it, great to talk about it, great to let the cable company know your feelings, but you have not very much you can do about programming issues.
No, that's why I said my comment was probably more, or notion was more directed at Sacramento Cable than at Comcast.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I can't call it Sacramento Cable anymore. Sorry. At Comcast than it is at this commission.
Body.
Yeah.
Okay, Jimmy?
I think in reference to Roger's comment, everything I've been involved in, if you don't have 51%, 5% doesn't buy you anything. It's 51% gives you the managing voice, and they do whatever 51% want to do. However, I do recall that in the past, Sac Cable at that time did have some advisory groups that they met with regards to issues that may occur between the public and the cable company. I'm hopeful that Comcast will continue to have that kind of a relationship. So maybe Ruth can address that.
Correct, but haven't you expanded that, Ruth?
Yeah, we have expanded that. I mean, I have to tell you that I feel we have an advisory group of 240,000 homes times however many people. I mean, 750,000 customers, and sometimes I feel like I spend my days talking to all of them. I do see my number one job as listening to customers, responding to customers, and I personally do respond to every customer that calls me or writes to me, as does the entire staff. We are very market driven. We do like to have customer input on a variety of issues, and programming is certainly an important one because it's a waste of very valuable channel space for us to add a channel that people don't want to watch. And so we pay quite a bit of attention to surveys, to focus groups, and so forth on programming, customer service as well. We can start all sorts of customer service initiatives, but we want to know that they're the ones that customers are most interested in. So we draw together groups for phone surveys, mail surveys, in-person discussions, and we certainly take into account all of the phone calls and letters that we get that make suggestions to us as well. So I feel as though because we have competitors, we're getting more competitors every day. We have to be very market driven. We have to listen to our customers, and I certainly feel as though it's our responsibility to do that, and we're doing it much better all the time. So I hope that that's your perception as well. But anything we do call together ad hoc groups from time to time on issues, because sometimes we just get bogged down. We say, all right, let's hear what our customers have to say. And a problem with that often is, and I think a problem with an advisory group often is, that it's still a limited perception. And being in 240,000 households, there are a lot of different viewpoints out there, and we want to make sure that we're getting a really good cross-section when we listen to people. So that's our job.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I saw that, Ron, if you wanted to testify, come forward. I saw that Brent Blair submitted a letter that we have from his law firm on behalf of River City.
Yes.
Okay, and they're in agreement?
They're actually requesting.
That's what I thought. And while he's not here, I expected him to be here, and his letter indicates that. I'm sorry.
Bob Hunt is here representing the Blair Law Firm.
I'm sorry, I didn't recognize that. I was looking for Brent.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you recognized that.
I apologize. They are represented. Brent's at another trial.
He's at another trial. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Ron?
Just very briefly, just to echo what Rich was saying, when the transfer was going through between Scripps Howard, Sacramento Cable, and Comcast, there were several meetings between the programming grantees and the then general manager. And one of the, I can't speak for the other groups, but there was a common theme of, because of programming issues, and really, more than anything else, for a better sense of efficiencies. I agree absolutely that with Ruth's leadership, I think there has been a significant change in terms of responsiveness, and that's wonderful. But I know how many bosses I have, and 240,000 is more than I can even fathom. And so if there was a desire on the part, I just want to raise the issue again, because that was an issue then proposed of some kind of regular meeting, publicly announced, where the grantees would participate, where the public's invited, to talk about issues not necessarily under the regulatory control of this body, but to hear from the 240,000 cable subscribers what their ideas are on programming issues, and to collaborate and cooperate even better than we already do. And that would be something that I know that we've asked for now for quite some time. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Well,
no other questions?
I was just going to say I appreciate Ruth's response, and I appreciate the improvements in responsiveness. But I think we all recognize that there can be merit in having a regular opportunity, and especially for people who can become somewhat more knowledgeable on issues related to the operation, because they spend a period of time. They don't just call and say, "Give me back the international channel. Where did it go?" They can talk about a range of issues and can reflect a variety of community perspectives on an ongoing basis. So I think those two things may overlap in terms of the responsiveness of the operator to customer input on an ad hoc basis and a more regular kind of forum. There is some overlap there, undoubtedly, but there are also unique aspects that each of those brings, I think, to the benefit of the operator. So perhaps I'm the only one who thinks this idea has any merit. One question I would ask is whether we would have the capability of requiring Comcast to have such an advisory group, or whether this would be strictly a matter within their discretion.
I think this would be a matter within their discretion. You know, at this point, I think what's before you right now is the only reason this is.
I don't mean in connection with this. I mean separate and apart from this. If we wish to pursue it.
Your jurisdiction really doesn't go to programming, and you don't have a provision that I'm aware of in your franchise off the top of my head that would allow you to mandate that Comcast set up a citizens committee to talk about those types of issues. So we could take a more in-depth look.
I was limiting my thoughts by the way of programming.
Okay.
I don't think that's the only issue by any means.
We could take a more in-depth look at that, and Rich may want to comment, but I'm not aware at this point that there is any condition of the franchise that would allow you to impose that obligation on Comcast.
I agree. That's not something we negotiated for in the franchise, the license, or the transfer.
Okay. Maybe if the chair doesn't object, I could just have a little further look at that by each of you. Without spending too much time or effort, but
yeah, I think it'd be fairly easy for Harriet to just look at the documents again. My recollection is Harriet's recollection, but no sense.
You never know what's in the penumbra.
I never mind rereading the franchise documents one more time. I'd be glad to do that.
Constellation of possibilities inherent in agreements is often uncontemplated.
Yeah. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in during this public hearing? Seeing no one come forward, I would like to have a motion to close the public hearing and move forward with the resolution.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Do you want to call the roll, please?
Bassett?
Aye.
Gora?
Aye.
Dickinson?
Aye.
Yee?
Aye.
Waters?
Aye.
Kurth?
Aye.
Shelby?
Aye.
Cohen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Was that just to close the
There's a close
hearing?
public hearing and adopt the resolution.
Oh, and adopt. Okay, so it's all taken care of. Great.
Now we're on item 4. We're actually getting through the agenda we didn't get through last time. This is the election of the chairperson and vice chairperson. And we had some discussion on that last time.
I'd like to nominate vice chair to next year's
Second.
chair.
Okay, moved and seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Now we need a nomination on vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Councilmember Waters as vice chair.
Okay, I'll second that. If you would like to do that.
Ron, I think.
Looks like the city had its ducks in order. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and now we're on the staff report.
Good afternoon. Very quickly, I have about 5 or 6 small items for you on the staff report, some of which I think
don't
will
go
be
too fast.
good news. Yes. First, on grantee funding, you have a operative resolution which sets the grantee funding limits. You established a base 3 years ago, so this is the last year of that base. It continues the numbers from the last 2 years. That's why there wasn't an action item today. Two, Supervisor Collin and the chair asked for an update on budget and excess revenues, so we'll pick that up here with a little quick number status for you. I'll be talking about numbers at their gross. These are their percentages that your revenue distributions go back to your parental jurisdictions on. I'll take a second here. The revenue distribution for the current year, 1997-98, has a base of $565,000. You augmented that base with $600,000 to your current budget total of $1,165,000. The checks will be cut second week in May back to your jurisdictions according to the percentages there.
So you're saying that the June excess is the number?
I'm saying $1,165,000 is the total, and it will spread to your jurisdictions. The county, Supervisor Collin, will get 53% of the $1,165,000.
Wait, could you go back to that last slide?
June excess. This is savings for next time?
I want to get down to the June excess then.
Yeah.
But you're saying that the budgeted amount of revenue to be distributed among those jurisdictions is 1.165?
Right, that's what you...
And that factors out the grantee?
Yes, this is the parental revenue only, and that is what is in your approved budget. June excess is that based on my projections from February data, when I bring you the budget in June, there will be an additional $125,000 available to you. This is primarily from the rate increase that Comcast implemented, and my projections how that will accrue to your license fees. So in June, you will have another $125,000 that you can say roll forward, you can say distribute it, etc. It'll be between 100 and 125 based on my best guess now. So Supervisor Collin, your message to my staff was what will be excess funds available.
Yes.
And to the best of my knowledge now, it will be around 125,000 in the current year.
In the current year, but that's excess above what was already distributed?
Excess above the 1.165, which will be distributed in May.
Will be.
Okay, that is the amount that will be. Okay, and then in addition to that, we have to look at the 125. The reason I asked Rich to prepare this is because every one of us are into budget preparations already at all of the local levels. And we needed some projections to look at in case the jurisdictions were going to be looking at making requests of the Cable Commission to return that money to the jurisdictions.
On that basis, Rich, can you give us a copy of that slide?
Oh, absolutely. Sure.
And make a note that it's unofficial, but, you know.
Right. We'll transmit this to you after the meeting. For the budget year. I'm sorry.
Just to get this in perspective for me, how much did we have last year at this time? You're showing 1.165. You're showing $1.1 million roughly now. What did we have last year at this time when we were talking about this issue?
Without digging through my notes, it was
roughly
about $100,000 less.
So it was that high last year.
Right.
Now, this is after Access and everybody else, Channel 6, and everybody's coming, and let's just say for the sake of argument that we allow them to have what we gave them last year, that still leaves this amount left over.
That's right.
Thank you.
I'll walk you through it from a kind of a different angle relative to the budget year. Budget year is the year starting in July and going through next year. I project you're going to have revenues from the cable company of approximately $3 million. Out of that $3 million, you put 20% by policy to the parental jurisdiction. So that's the $600,000. You put $1.4 million by policy into community programming. That's $2 million. You're going to have somewhere about $1 million left over. And I'm sorry, $700,000 left over. I forgot. You put about $300,000 a year into maintaining your office and your staff. So as they bring you a budget in June for next year, $600,000 gets distributed by the percentages I showed you. Automatically, you have an operating policy that says 20% of the revenue you get off the top goes to your parental jurisdictions, your home-based jurisdictions. Then you'll have a separate decision on if you want to allocate another $700,000 in June for next year. And then the question mark I show in that chart is that I'm a little bit chicken right now to project now what you'll have available a year from June. My numbers are just too soft. But in reality, we run, as I look through the year, I don't budget down to every, I can't manage when we go down to every last penny. And we end up out of a $3 million budget, we'll have $100,000 sitting at the end.
Okay, and I think for the fact that the cities and the county are doing their budgeting now, and they budget from June through the following June, so they're looking at cable from the June 98 to the June 99 year as one issue. I guess what I need to make clear is between now and June is when the 125 comes into play.
Yes, you'll get a decision on that. Let me see if this helps. The $1,165,000 was noticed to the finance managers in each of your jurisdictions, and I believe they already have that booked as revenue into your respective general funds.
I think they did that in the last budgeting cycle.
Yes.
Budgeting cycle.
Right.
So if they were looking in the next budgeting cycle, they would realistically be looking at the $1.3 million figure, looking at the split on the 1.3 million, but in addition to that, they would have to be making a decision whether this 125 would get moved before June of 98 or carry over and become part of the 98 to 99 year. Is that the choice that they would
exactly
make?
And that is.
Have you transmitted that information?
No, this is the first time this information's been out, and what you described, Supervisor Cullen, is exactly the issue, and that is all subject to your discretion here first.
Correct.
This board gets to make the decision to move the money back to your parental jurisdictions or however else you choose to allocate it. So your decision first, but that's exactly the issue that you'll have in June. Do you want to deal with the 125 with staff direction this fiscal year, June of 98, or do you want to take it and add it to the 700,000 and deal with it in the 98-99 cycle?
Yeah, and I think this is something that probably the jurisdictions would really like to give some consideration to, perhaps before we come into our next meeting, which is...
Yeah, I think it should be agendized for next meeting to discuss.
I think we at least should have it on the agenda next time, because I think that it will be news to the different jurisdictions, and they might want to know that as they're putting together even next year's budget and sort of trying to budget what they might be asking of the commission for next year.
So let me say, you would like based on what Mr. Yee said, a memo back to yourselves transmitting this information and copy to the fiscal officers of your jurisdictions?
Yes. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. And then in addition, put this on the agenda for our next meeting.
Yes.
Jimmy?
Okay.
I only have one question, Rich, and that is on that 125. I need to know how conservative estimate that is. If it isn't conservative, I need to know that too, because
I believe the 125 is conservative. It will probably go up from there, but it comes back to my running my numbers and then going and saying to Ruth, what's your revenue going to be for the next quarter? And how does it compare to the last quarter? And what do you think 5% of it's going to be? I've been through all that. We don't have a lot of experience yet on what the recent rate increase has done to the revenues of the company and then how that passes back on to us. I get those numbers on May 1st. When we meet again, I believe we'll be meeting again in June on budget, you'll have the best I have.
Okay, good.
Okay, let me get some more slides for you. But let's talk about, if you don't mind, the next issue, which was your calendaring. I recommend that we keep the April meeting on the agenda, but at the discretion of the chair, we advise you not to hold the meeting, because as of right now, I have no items looking forward that we would need to meet on. So the April meeting stays on the agenda. It's already calendared on all your calendars to the best of our knowledge.
What day is it?
It's the first Thursday in April. It's 4th?
April 2nd.
April 2nd, excuse me. So that stays on. We do know that at the May meeting, many of you were at cap to cap. So we're recommending that, I'll explain. I'd like to leave it on the schedule, subject to the chair canceling the meeting. And that your next scheduled meeting for sure meeting would be the June meeting, where we would bring all this back at budget time. But because the City Council has moved its June meeting due to election day, from Tuesday to Thursday on top of this meeting, we've scheduled on your calendars for June 11th at 9:30 in this chambers. Correct?
9:30 is fine. I calendared it for 9 o'clock.
I'm sorry,
Either way.
9 o'clock. Let me add one more proviso to your schedule. The protective lawsuit, that is the insurance carrier suit that began some 12 years ago now, is scheduled for trial on March 19th. To the best of my knowledge now, there is no requirement for any of you to participate, but there is a requirement that staff and your litigation counsel go through a mandatory settlement conference. Should there be a decision or decisions or a decision which can be recommended to you out of that settlement conference, it would be necessary to call a special meeting. I just wanted to let you know about that, and that if we come at you, it would be something related to those issues.
Okay, I just want to come back with one item. It's in that June meeting. If it's going to be on the 11th, would you make that at 9:30?
At 9:30?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think that you've already checked, and that does not get into the SACOG or set of dates, correct?
That's correct.
I checked. I didn't specifically ask about those meetings. I called each of your secretaries and talked about whether or not there was anything, and they said no.
SACOG is the first and third Thursdays.
Is it? Okay, and that's like the second.
Thursday.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Then if I understand what you just said, Rich, there will be an April meeting.
Unless it gets canceled.
Unless it gets canceled. But I'm saying because I don't personally want to wait till June to hear about this budget discussions, because the parent...
Well, it might be good to bring that back then, just to really say the April 2nd meeting for sure, because there's so many of us are going to be back on cap to cap that I can probably almost guarantee that May is going to get...
Okay. We have to know this before that.
Your call. Okay, so you'd like to have an April meeting, budget update, but before then a memo to all of you and a memo to your finance managers.
Make a decision on the
and then you can decide.
Excess money.
Okay.
And the May meeting is canceled?
May meeting is cap to cap. We can't get a quorum.
Right, because the city moved our council meeting over to Thursday.
Oh, okay.
We didn't know about that.
So we couldn't make that anyway.
We couldn't make it anyway.
Okay, well, I think that since this is under the staff status report, are we able to cancel it, or should we put it on next time as a meeting to be canceled?
Your meeting's already scheduled, so you haven't changed anything.
Right. Generally speaking, we've canceled the meetings based on lack of a quorum. So when you have your April meeting, we'll bring a schedule back of what we anticipate the meeting schedule will be like based on your conversation.
Okay, so that we can formally announce that it'll be canceled. I do believe too many will be out of town to get a quorum.
I have 2 or 3 small staff items to add. One is relative to cap. If you are going on to cap and have the opportunity to bring forward the cable rate policy issues that you approved last month, Supervisor Collins sent letters to our congressional delegation on the FCC. That's the basis for that. I'd encourage you to bring that in to cap. I mentioned protective. We are gearing up for election forums in June. That process has started. That involves quite a bit of staff time. The city robotics are in place and will be operational next week, so that the robotic cameras are up and running. Mr. Gore, we know that there was an audio problem in Galt, and we're working on it to get that resolved. And on the dais before you, in just a brief 30 seconds, I want to describe quickly what we're doing tomorrow in this chambers, and that will conclude the staff status report for you. You see that we're holding a digital workshop. What this is that I've reported to you over the last 7 or 8 years that we've been setting aside funds in a depreciation account as we move towards having to replace the equipment that records your meetings. So our first objective in developing an RFP and coming to you at budget time with this equipment replacement plan, and this is 3/4-inch tape equipment that we purchased in 1985 and 86. We put a lot of effort in maintaining it, and in fact a lot of the parts we're using now is from old equipment we bought from the city of Roseville, is to go to a digital, a new storage mechanism that's digital that will allow us to play back portions of meetings. That is, to be able to respond now very simply and say if someone wants to hear item 2 from Tuesday's city council meeting, we can put it out on the channel. And we'll do that by accepting phone calls from people. Right now it's quite difficult. If you can imagine going to your favorite place in a VHS tape at home and finding that little spot, queuing it up and playing it, it's a little bit complicated. The equipment we're looking at will have a byproduct of being very easily accessible, computer-driven. So that has to do with replacing our existing equipment, and one benefit we see coming out of that upgrade. Separately, we see, and we're looking over the next 2 or 3 years as part of our staff strategic plan, and we have 40 people coming tomorrow from throughout the state to work with us on refining our specification and needs, is the ability to put your meetings out on the World Wide Web. We see in the future a website with something like this, where you could be anywhere in the world, and you would click on this.
This meeting is being videotaped in its entirety, and will be cablecast without interruption on Metro Cable 14, the Government Affairs channel on the Comcast cable system.
We're looking at very simply being able to interface what we now capture on the web, which would make it available again to anybody who had web access. That's like first part of phase 2, 1 to 2 years out. The next piece, logically, is to be able then to move video on the web. So you would have a website in your computer.
Do you have a way of selling into another municipality, or are we going to sit back and hold them so we can use them as replacements, as 90 gallons?
That's the next phase. And then the third phase takes us out probably 3 years, but that would be that using the web as the interface, someone anywhere they wanted to be on their PC could pick the meeting and or the sub-item within the meeting they wanted to see.
Yes, from having federal homework and experiences in community service.
So that's the purpose of our workshop tomorrow. We will be coming to you at budget time with the RFP and the specifications and what we've learned in working with vendors and others throughout the state to put this package together. You may have seen, or you may see us down here tomorrow working pretty hard. That's the staff status report in 9 minutes. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Great. Are any questions for Rich?
Yeah.
Jimmy?
I'm glad.
No, I'll come back to Robbie.
Is that what the word streaming means? Is that you can pick and choose all these little different items?
No, streaming has to do with the technology that you could not send a meeting to your computer all at once. You'd clog everything.
Yeah.
So it's streamed in little bits.
Okay.
The picking it part, that's pretty basic to it all. That's just a graphic user interface.
Richard, I don't know if this is a place to do it. Maybe it's the next item I should bring up the subject, because we were talking about our budget, but or some of the surplus, but I might ask this question after.
Robbie?
Seeing that telephone up there reminds me, I presume it's a piece of technology that we have at the city that's run by 14 as far as the phone call in. People want to talk to city council. Is that part of your bailiwick or not?
We help spec it, but it's pretty much run by the city staff.
That's who I should tell you. It's getting to the point of being very, very embarrassing. We lose people after they get in their conversation of 2 or 3 words. We all of a sudden get busy signals. If I was sitting in the mayor's chair, I'd be very embarrassed with the perception that the person that was on the phone calling us was maybe doing something that is talking on some subject that was anti-city or whatever, and then all of a sudden you get the dial tone and the person's gone, like implying, which of course I know is not happening, that we cut them off. And then we're losing we're losing lots.
That would never happen.
No, we would never do that. But seriously, do you agree with the perception, Jimmy and Rob?
Yes.
Let's check it out. We've worked quite closely. It's for us. Business-wise, this facility, while it belongs to the county, administratively and contractually, we pretty much run it. On the city side, it belongs to the city, and we're the guest operator. So we have brought, like, for example, the robotic cameras now that you have down before you, you paid for as a cable commission. We installed, but it really belongs to the city, and we did it under the aegis and supervision of the city engineers. We'll get in and go to work on it. We work well together, but it's a little different.
If you get back to it, Rich, because like I say, that is then these, I presume these cameras are the same as we have. These type of robotic cameras that you have here in place in the city. They seem you can hear them when they're moving quite loudly compared to these. You never hear these moving, and that's something else that might be looked into.
We've been tracking that, and I appreciate the comment back. All the staff are on alert for that.
Okay.
We're watching to see how you adjust. Supervisor Collin will recall that when we first made the conversion here, we had the same complaint. And so we're watching that. There are some things we can then go to next to baffle, but it means putting more physical things around it.
WD-40.
If you notice here, there's baffling around these, so we have to look at some way to possibly enclose it.
We thought it was an art piece.
No, that's sound baffling.
2% of that.
This is one we had to wrestle with in making the specifications for the cameras, was how much more money to spend versus what we thought the noise level would be, and we wrestled quite a bit with that.
Maybe just because we're not used to it, but it sits right off to my left.
We're tracking that to see exactly how it would be.
Okay.
And then, on balance, is the disruption or the noise from the camera less than having the staff person stand there, and that's really what it'll come down to. So we've been listening and cued into what you had to say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments on the staff report? Okay, none. We'll go then on to item 6, which is the public opportunity to discuss matters not on this agenda, but within our jurisdiction. And I see no one rushing forward.
I have it.
So you want to make a comment under this one. All right, Jim, go ahead.
As a commissioner, not as
Great.
Rich, in the past, when we had quite a few issues with regards to cable, this board has funded partially some of those who went back to cap.
In part, yes.
In part. I'm not sure whether we still have the same amount of issue. In fact, I'm sure we don't have the same amount. But the question I have is that there are some members of this commission who cannot fully fund or find it difficult to fully fund their trip to cap, which I find very, very effective, by the way. And the question I have is whether this commission can discuss partial funding, or is this possible?
Yes, and
could we put that on the agenda for April?
Truly.
Okay, in
yes.
case we need an action item, that'll still be time, won't it,
Right.
Jimmy?
We have done that previously, and my recollection is that the time we did it previously, it was partial funding, and we made, I believe Mr. Waters was part of it, where we analyzed the meetings that you had and what portion of the total cost, and the Cable Commission picked up a piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the logical way to do it, depending on, we're looking at the different committee structures. Some people are going to be mainly focusing on RT issues. Some people might want to focus on some of the cable issues. Others are strictly city or county issues. And so there might be a way to balance out the payments.
I'd just like to speak to that Steve Cohn and I, you set up the appointments with us, and that was the trenching issue about opening up our city streets and county roads and so on. And I recall that it was around, I think the trip was around $2,000, and I think you paid $700 of that per person, because we did go back there to discuss. And I think that's what Jimmy's question is. Is there something this year that we could, at least the city level, I can't speak for the county, where we could get some kind of a partial funding off of this commission?
It clearly is your decision, but yes, at your last meeting, you directed staff to prepare and the chair to sign letters to our congressional delegation and all FCC commissioners asking that cable rates be moderated. That is based on your existing policy. If it were to be your decision to actively work that issue when you're in Washington, that's a legitimate business expense of this entity.
Well,
what we did last time was we looked to see who you were meeting with, overall costs, and staff came to you with what we thought was a reasonable allocation, and then you approved it. So we can add that to the agenda for next month.
Okay, I'd like to see that agenda, because Jimmy's idea is, I'd say, and I'm just piggybacking on that idea, is because as I recall, you had your lobbyists back in D.C. set these appointments with the different congressmen that Colin and I met with.
That's right.
And if because I would be more than happy.
I think it would be important to do that, and it would be important ahead of time for those people who know for sure they are going and who would work on some of these cable issues to make sure that they get those names to Rich, so that by the time we meet on April 2nd, we'll know which jurisdictions are sending people and who's going to work on what.
We have a full quorum here. Are all of you going on cap to cap?
Yeah. How many are going on cap to cap?
I'm not sure yet.
1,
I think
2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Georgia Cox is maybe at this point.
He's just a maybe?
Yeah.
So 6 of us will be back
Give you an
there.
idea how many.
No, I'm sure. From what I understand, though, the reservations are due next week because I've heard from some of the other governing boards as they're trying to make their determinations on this as well. So maybe it makes sense to give some conceptual, allow the executive director to address this with the chair and the individual member that wants to go, because to bring it back in April may be too late for each of the elected officials to make that determination.
Ratify a decision.
Why don't we just use last year's policy and proceed?
Basically, I guess the bottom line is that I'm going to go anyway, and did before, that's not going to influence whether I go or don't go, because I am going.
I think it just helps the different jurisdictions in planning on the issues and what you're going to concentrate on. And I think that all of us are originally having our jurisdictions sign up so that the chamber will have some idea of how many are going. But we do need to have a discussion then about maybe the cost sharing. And I think we could handle that in April without any undue problem. Okay.
So we're leaving it as make your plans. We'll deal with the cost-sharing issue in April based on the allocation methodology from before or as we need to update.
Yeah, because we also have to check with RT and some of the others.
Yeah.
Okay.
We want to see how many hours or meetings we can plug in for cable only, and so that we don't sign up and overburden ourselves with water or RT or whatever. Okay.
Understand. We'll stop it.
Okay, any other items to come before the commission? If not, we are adjourned. And thank you very much.